Hello and good morning everybody, and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast in association with eBay Motors Group. It is Saturday the 12th of December and you're joined by myself, Philip Nothard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. So this is episode 395 of Motor Trade Radio, bringing you all the chatter that matters. And this week, Phil, we are busting at the seams.
Yeah, it's been a particularly busy show this week, and we've got a fantastic upbeat interview with Marshall boss Daksh Gupta, and he's talking about his upwards profit forecast for 2020 from 15 million to no less than 19 million. So great interview there with Dash.
Yes, and he was very precise about that, not less than 19 million. So, it's a great interview, and we'll run that at the beginning of the show. But to kick off this week, let's do some news in briefs, because we can't get all the headlines in. So here's a few stories. So the first one's from you, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And this is actually, I mean, we did discuss this with Dash, actually, but Honda this week, we found that have paused their production in Swindon as part supplies become an issue, and this is due to the run-up of the end of the Brexit transition period and the impact on the ports as COVID restrictions, and that's being talked about, isn't it, where there's restricted movement around Europe, etc., from the 1st of Jan. So it's definitely hitting the automotive sector now.
Yeah, it's a big issue for just-in-time manufacturing, and it's something we talked about only last week about Bentley flying in parts on these massive Antonov transport planes. So, interesting development there. So another story that caught our eye this week was UK Brexit billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe has shifted the Ineos Grenadier production. So that's his take on the Land Rover Defender. So he shifted production from Bridgend in South Wales to a Daimler-owned smart factory in France, where he'll also be making smart cars under license. And that understandably hasn't gone down well in Wales.
No, it's a real shame, and I know we talked about it a while back, didn't we, when there was intimations that he may actually look elsewhere other than Wales, and they obviously had the eyes on the Daimler factory over in France there. But it's a real shame, particularly for the brand and him as an entrepreneur and what he's done in the UK previously. So it's a real shame, and you can understand why Wales are disappointed with that result. But actually talking about EV a little bit there, the first all-electric recharging station has opened down by GridServe down in Essex, and it's a big site, that a big without offering all sorts of charging options for the consumers there. But they have promised that there'll be another 100 more over the next 5 years, and from this week you can also get your green stripe number plates on your EV, whether that is a new or used car. Lots of promotions coming out from the dealers at the minute, where they're enticing people to go in and get their number plates changed to show that they are driving around in an electric vehicle with the green number plate.
Yeah, and I'm sure I read that the site actually has, as well as a coffee shop, and there's a Smith's there, but there's also a gym, so you can have a quick workout whilst you're recharging. And I'm pretty sure the the machines in the gym actually feed back into the grid, so you can actually charge your own car. How's that?
That's fantastic, isn't it? Fantastic.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. But we have got the first story of this week, and that is, as we say, you know, the results there from Marshalls and the Motor Trader Motor Trader. Sorry. They've got the first headline saying that Marshalls raises full-year profit forecast to not less than 19 million. Great result there. So should we head over to the interview and get the detail from Dash himself?
So, welcome to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, Dash, and thanks for joining us to discuss the trading update you issued this week. Now, the main headlines in the update are your revised full-year profit forecast, which is upwards from £15 million to not less than £19 million. And you've also announced you won't be using the government's job retention scheme in 2021, and that's on the back of your previous announcement on the repayment of the government's VAT payment deferral scheme. So what's prompted these moves?
Hi, Curtis. Hi, Phil. Thanks for inviting me on the show. So, gosh, a few things to talk about in there, isn't there, Curtis? So I think the first thing is around, let's probably talk about the profit upgrade. So we announced in October that our trading for the quarter three, in particular September period, was absolutely stunning, quite frankly. You might recall the RNS we put out on October the 13th. So across all of our key metrics, we were double digit ahead of the market on retail, on fleet. So we had a really exceptional September. That meant we actually upgraded our numbers back then to 15 million. And I guess at that time, we were a little bit anxious around, well, what's going to happen at the end of October, end of the furlough scheme? Could you see lots of redundancies? You've still got COVID round, talk of lockdown. So, we sort of put that forecast in because we didn't really have a clear vision of what was going to happen in the fourth quarter because of all of that uncertainty. And we went into October. We had a really pleasing October. And despite the fact that actually we were locked for the month of November, the two combined months, November and October, performed really well. So, we outperformed the market on new. So just to put that into perspective, we were up 9.8% versus the market. So that was really strong. Yeah. And despite the fact that actually we couldn't open our operations for the month of November, actually we were down 12% for the 2 months, which I thought, considering we couldn't do test drives and things, was actually a pretty reasonable result. But after sales was standout. I mean, we were only down 3% for the 2 months. So that was pleasing. And it was those two combined months that actually meant that we upgraded our numbers this morning to 19 million. So just short of 30% upgrade, which is clearly significant. And as you rightly said, Curtis, the key point there is it's not less than 19 million is what we're calling out. And I think in terms of the two moves around the government's VAT deferral scheme and the job retention scheme was really about the fact that, the company, the actual VAT deferral payment scheme enabled companies to defer VAT payment until March 2022. We had benefited from that scheme, like a lot of companies. Many companies in the sector have taken advantage of that scheme because it's a material amount of money for us. It was just shy of £11 million. We actually paid that back in September, so some 18 months early, and we felt, given how well the group's done, given the strength of the balance sheet, the fact that we've got sort of 30 million of cash, which we also still have today, we felt it was the right thing to do our bit to support the nation back, given the government's been there to support us. So we paid that back then. And I think in terms of our statement around, it is our current intentions not to use the job retention scheme in 2021. I think it's quite bold. I think it's brave. It's ambitious. I know many companies have said to me that they intend to use the scheme in Q1 because, if you take our business, our payroll with national insurance contributions and pensions is probably about 150 million. So, you could easily, put people on and off furlough during Q1 potentially and maybe get a £4, £5, £6 million benefit if you kind of wanted to. So our view is we want to look forward. We see lots of potential good news coming down the track, and we're setting our stall out to be in it to win it. And I think it's also good for our customers and our colleagues to have some sort of normality, and probably good for their mental health and well-being as well. So it's brave, but that's what we thought was the right thing to do. And I think it's also right that if you don't need that support, then I think it's the right thing not to take advantage of that government support. And, fortunately, we're in a fortunate position where we can do that. And we discussed it at length as a board. And I hope other companies who are in a similarly strong position will also recognise what we've tried to do, and hopefully they'll try and do the right thing as well.
No, I mean, great to have you back on, Dash, as always, and well done, by the way. Just before we get into the questions around being Employer of the Year awarded for Motor Trader this week, so another award to put on the heavy shelf. Although this year it's a slightly different display award for your shelf, isn't it?
Well, I think as Curtis is no longer editor of Motor Trader, I think John's got a bit more upmarket now and decided to put his hand in his pocket for decent awards this year.
Yeah,
So, well done, John.
I think they've got a bit of budget now, Dash.
Velvet bags and everything. I think by the looks of it,
Well, it was velvet bags actually.
Yeah.
I have to say, I reckon Curtis was using those Motor Trader awards budgets for all that champagne and wine he keeps going out on his Not One Jollies, you know.
I think it was. I mean, again, fantastic results, and just in terms, your results obviously provide a timely snapshot of obviously trading since September, and it's been an interesting year without doubt for the sector. But do you want to just talk us through just a couple of the quick highlights of the sector? You know, we've had conversations around supply of new cars. We're weeks away now from the end of the year. We're weeks away from whatever is happening around the world of Brexit. What would you say your key highlights are since September now for trading for yourself?
I think it's just been so bizarre, isn't it? I mean, if you've kind of touched on some of the dynamics around new car supply, how that's basically seen margins strengthen in new cars. That's obviously then, because there's been shortages, there's very simple supply to demand economics, isn't it? If there's not enough of something out, then there's more people wanting the product, then margins tend to go up. So that's provided tailwinds, which of course everybody's benefited from. We've seen that then transfer into the used car market. Used car market has been very robust, as you'll be aware of. So used cars has performed very, very strongly. After sales, as I said earlier, we were down only 3%. I mean, I think that's an extraordinary stat. To be down only 3% over the 2 months, and we had a lockdown. It's like, wow. So there've been quite a number of trading highlights, I think, through the period. I think there's a testament to the quality of the management team and all of the people at Marshall in terms of the fantastic work they've done this year. So I'm really, really proud of what they've done this year, and they've got to take absolutely the credit for that, really.
Now Dash, with all your showrooms actually closed in November, because your business is totally focused in the UK, so all your showrooms were closed for new and used car sales during lockdown too. How were you actually able to fulfill sales in terms of new and used cars? How was that actually conducted?
Well, all of our operations were shut, completely to any sales customers. And, from our perspective, we were very, very, very strict. We did hear a few sort of suggestions that some people might be trying to sort of, chuck keys at customers on forklifts and stuff, and we're just not going to tolerate any sort of nonsense on that, because I think from our perspective, our reputation is too important to try and sell one or two extra cars. So we just simply said, we're not doing this. We're aware that also trading standards and health and safety executive did actually mystery shop some businesses, and by the way, we were mystery shopped as well at 4 of our locations by trading standards and health and safety, and I'm proud to say that all 4 locations passed with flying colours. So, so we had all of our operations closed, which was good, and we simply took online inquiries and phone inquiries. And as I said, I'm staggered. We were only down 12.7%, but I think it shows the sort of resilience of the model, and that you can actually transact over the phone, and you can provide click and collect services. And I think that's the result of the volumes were down, as I said, only 12% on used, and as I said, we were up 9.8% versus the market on used. So we're particularly pleased with that.
And Dash, in terms of online sales, I seem to recall last time we spoke on the podcast, you weren't a big fan of online sales, but has that view changed? Has your view mellowed?
I wouldn't say I was not a fan of online sales. I would say I'm not convinced that you're going to see this massive move. I am a fan of online sales. I just think, do I fundamentally think it's going to be the panacea to stop customers requiring to take test drives and People are talking a lot about this, but let's not forget the internet's been around for 25 years. 25 years. I think what the digitalization and online strategy is going to simply do is it's going to mean that customers will want to have more of an experience through a digitalized experience. They will want to click to buy. I mean, we launch a new website in a couple of weeks' time, and that will have far more functionality and again take us another level in terms of customer experience. But I still feel, buying a car is an emotional purchase. You cannot describe to a customer. I mean, I'm driving an Audi RS6 today, which what a machine that car is. I mean, it's phenomenal. How could you say to a customer, what an Audi RS6 handles like on the road, or corners like it's on rails? So I've heard allegedly. So Jamie Crowder told me because he's got one as well. I mean, you can't describe that. You can't describe what that's like online. People want to feel what that feels like, the exhilaration. What does it sound like? What does it drive like? And I don't think you'll ever replicate that, online. I think there will be a small percentage of people who simply say, I don't care. I'm simply paying for a monthly payment to basically have mobility. And I think one of the things we should start doing, and I'm going to start using this moving forward, and I've started to use it already, we in many other industries where you have subscriptions, okay, you look at any subscription business, okay, the valuations of those businesses are phenomenal. What have we got? We've got PCPs. Well, what are they? They're exactly the same as far as I'm concerned. They're a subscription. You pay a monthly payment for the utilisation of a car for a 2 or 3 year period, and then you go again, don't you? Tell me what the difference is. It is a subscription service. So I'm going to start talking more about PCPs being a subscription service because, I think sometimes we're too quick and others are too quick to criticize what we're doing, but actually we are quite advanced and we do have a good loyal customer database and we do have retention strategies. So I think that's where I'm a little bit more questioning over, do I see a situation where everyone's going to be buying vehicles online 100%? I'm not convinced. I think you will have people place orders and then they will want to fulfill and continue to see that transaction through. That said, as I said, there will be a small percentage of people who will say, I don't really care. I just want a car to get me from A to B.
Yeah, and you mentioned the new website because customers will actually be able to reserve online, won't they, with the new website?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and is that the first time you've offered that?
Well, you know what, actually, Curtis, I've got to tell you something. We actually had that facility about 6 years ago. Okay, 6 years ago.
Too early.
Right.
Too early.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think from memory, and there was a cost for having that facility in place. We had so few orders, so few orders, that actually it was more expensive to have the facility there than. And I think we sold, 20 cars in a whole year or something silly, and half of those cancelled because they said, "Oh, this isn't what I expected." It was when I turned up to see the car. Yeah. So we then took it off our facility. So there's nothing new. We had it 6 years ago, and I still think I think it's just an evolution really, and I think it's going to be an evolution rather than a revolution that people are talking about.
Yeah, ahead of the curve, Dash.
It's when people are ready, isn't it? I mean, there's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of technology out there, but the timing of it is key when the consumers are ready to adopt it and use it, and that's key with it. I mean, we're talking about new cars, and there's a lot of conversation this week, Dash, as we know, around as we mentioned earlier, with the transition period starting to end in a few weeks, and a lot of conversations now around the impact of Brexit around supply issues, and we've seen this week with the Honda plant suspending manufacturing due to parts shortages, and Bentley have been out talking around obviously flying parts into Manchester, and Alison Jones was on the FT event last week from PSA talking about the lobbying around the rules of origin and things like this. And what's your view? How will all this impact the sector and affect marshals, and do you expect the other UK producers to sort of follow suit on this? Because there's a lot happening at the minute, isn't there, around new vehicle supply and the parts supply chain.
Do you know what? I think it's really hard to call. I mean, I think obviously the big issue for everybody right now is getting clarity on Brexit, and I do hope that this is all political positioning. I'm still very optimistic we'll get a deal, but then again, everyone accuses me of being too optimistic. I mean, I was watching the news last night, the 11 o'clock news, and it was, you could see what was going on at Dover and some of the other ports and how it was being delayed. But these are the potential realities we have to face as a country, based on the decision that the country took back in 2016. So I think it's really hard to say where it's all going to play out, Phil. I mean, I think clearly manufacturers, big businesses, they are going to have to manage their parts distribution and supply chains, which is, when you listen to, as you said, people flying parts in and doing all sorts of stuff to try and get parts through. I heard of one manufacturer bringing parts through briefcases and luggage, literally, to try and get things done.
Yes.
So we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see what happens. But I think it potentially could have an impact. But equally, there is potential lots of good news out there as well to say that we'll get through this.
Yeah, and I think really when you came on the podcast right at the early days of the first lockdown, we had the conversation that as a business you can only focus on what you can control, and that
Absolutely
was a key
right.
message at that time. All what was happening around lockdown, everything else was really out of your control, and a lot of this is out of your control. The political and the OEM challenges, you can just focus on your business, what you do with your staff, your businesses on a day-to-day basis, and if that means focusing on physical stock and used cars whilst new car gets its supply, then that's what you can control, I suppose, in many ways.
Yeah, 100%. Control what you can control and don't worry about the things you can't.
So finally, Dash, turning to 2021, how optimistic are you about the car retailing sector, both new and used? How do you think they're going to perform in Q1?
Well, we're going to smash it out and park it, Marshall, because we set our stall out, as I said. So we are going to kill it. We're going to have a fantastic Q1 in quarter one, and actually the market's irrelevant because I can't control the market, Curtis. We're going to make sure that we still market share. We're going to make sure we maximise every single inquiry. So we're going to have a great quarter one at Marshall. That said, what do I think the market will do? I think the market will be determined by what happens on Brexit, if I'm honest. And I think in some ways, I think if we have a deal, which I'm fingers crossed, I think, and fingers, toes, and everything else crossed, and I am still optimistic we can get a deal. I think this is all political positioning and hope. I know this is being recorded today on Wednesday, and this will go out on Saturday morning. Let's hope that we almost did it on two versions of this, shouldn't we? If it was the Brexit deal and the non-Brexit deal. But I think if we have a Brexit deal, then I'm very, very, very positive. Very positive. I think there is what I've said internally to my team a couple of weeks ago. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We've got. Not one vaccine, not two, but we've got 3 vaccines. The UK was the first country to have that approved. Fantastic. The vaccines are now being put out there. The R rate has come down. If a Brexit deal happens, which I'm optimistic it will, I think sterling will appreciate. If sterling appreciates, you'll then have, that's good news for our manufacturer partners because they'll make incremental margin, which will drive better tactical offers for our customers, which is good news for them, and it will drive more sales. So, there's lots of good news. I think equally, I never like to comment about politics because, it's just not my place to. But I think if you look at what's happened in the US and, even with Dominic Cummings in the UK, not my personal opinion, as I said, I'm not commenting, but both those moves do seem to have been well received. So if you look at the US stock exchange, that hit 30,000, all-time record only a couple of weeks ago. If you look at the FTSE, not many people are talking about this, by the way, but actually the FTSE today, on Wednesday, has closed at the highest level since lockdown. Now, why aren't people talking about that? But I'll probably get accused of being somebody who's positive and optimist, but there you go. So I'm very positive about the outlook. We're going to have a fantastic year at Marshall. We have a strategy called Project Vanquish, and Vanquish because we were thinking of a project code name to win. And Vanquish is all about vanquishing the virus. That's what we're going to do. We're going to kill the virus for 2020, hence why we're not interested in taking furlough next year. We're setting our stall out to win. And for me, it's about your mindset, as I said to you before.
Other people's challenges create opportunities for others, don't they? So, like you say, you've set your stall out, positive results since, all throughout the year. You post first lockdown throughout the third quarter into the fourth quarter, and do you know what? If you're in a strong position, which you are, then it's a great place to be going into 2021. So, like you say, we can only look positive and optimistic. We have 37 million vehicles on the road in the UK, and we'll go into 2021 with a new car market of some sort and used car opportunities of some sort. And I think if it were me, one learning from this year is the profitability is available on both new and used cars, and we've proven that through this third and fourth quarter, haven't we, as a sector?
Yep, agreed.
I mean, it just remains for me to say thanks again, Dash. Very optimistic. Take care in your Audi. Obviously, you obviously don't take corners at any speed at all. And hopefully you find more space for these new, bigger, better awards that you're being given recently.
You need a new cabinet, Dash. You need a new cabinet.
Oh, possibly. It's good old John Kerwin. He's put some budget out. Well done, John. Guys, good to talk to you. Take care, guys.
Same to you.
And before I go, just well done for the show. I do listen to it pretty much every single week. I wake up to it and on a Saturday morning and do enjoy it. And I think a lot of people in the industry talk to me about it. And actually, I think you guys should take a lot of credit for what you guys do. I think it's kept a lot of people going. So well done to you guys. And listeners, have a fantastic Christmas and New Year. And the same to you guys. Take care.
Same to you, Dash, and same to all your staff and colleagues as well. So fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks, Dash.
Cheers.
So as ever, Dash is very, very upbeat there. He's very optimistic about 2021 and the results and obviously winning his award as well by Motor Trader there. A little bit of a dig there, Curtis, for you.
Yes, yeah. Well, they've obviously got more budget now than back in my days, and you're right. I feel totally pumped up after that interview, and interesting use of the word vanquish for this 2021 strategy. And I wonder if Dash has Aston Martin on his mind. Yeah. I should have asked him.
I think you were being too. I think you'd asked him a couple of journalistic kind of. Questions anyway, so I think you might have had one too many possibly.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't resist asking about online because it is something we've talked about before, and I know last time he said that yes, it's something that they can do, they can offer, but he wasn't convinced. And it's interesting now that they've put the reserve button back on the website, because it's interesting that they had that a number of years ago, but it wasn't being used. But times change.
It has. So we're going over to Car Dealer magazine now, and this is data coming out of Indicator, and the headline is used car sales fell 22% in lockdown 2, but high demand expected throughout Christmas and into 2021. So what's your thoughts on this one? Because it's we've seen the impact of lockdown 1, and we're now coming out of the second lockdown, and we've got Christmas purely just weeks away now. So what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is an interesting piece of research because it's absolutely key to find out what happened during November. So the data that they produce shows that they saw the first retail price fall since the start of the first national lockdown back in March. But they do add that drop actually started to rise again during the first week of December. So where those prices rose by 0.3%, which is kind of where we're expecting the year to end on strong retail prices.
Yeah, and I think, we talk about forecasts into 2021 and the supply and demand challenges that are out there, but we just, I think there has been indications this week around the profitability of dealers. So they are certainly, focusing on PPU at the minute and maximising that shortage of products in the marketplace. So let's hope that continues into the first quarter of next year. So talking about results there, with following Dash's interview there, but we're going over to AM Online. And this is on Inchcape. And Inchcape have reported a better than expected November lockdown from the sales throughout that lockdown 2, indicating that they've had a very profitable period.
Yeah, so the group said that it now expects its 2020 profit before tax and pre-exceptionals will be materially ahead of the published market consensus, which was £108 million. So that's good news from Inchcape there. And they do actually say that it was a stronger than expected November, and they were very much keyed up to provide online services there for customers in November.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it'd be great to get James Brealey on the podcast. I mean, we've obviously talked about Inchcape numerous times in terms of the acquisitions and disposals, and we'll be talking shortly about the most recent disposal. But again, showing that they are making profit, they are still active and very focused on the retail sector in the UK, which has been questioned, I think, numerous times over the last few years, hasn't it?
Indeed, yes, and that does tie in neatly with our next story, which is also from AM, and it's Virtue Motors completes Inchcape, BMW and Mini dealership acquisitions. So this is a story we've visited a couple of times over recent months, and it is the sale of 12 BMW Mini and BMW Motorrad retail outlets across 5 locations from Inchcape's Cooper BMW division. So these locations, so it's 12 sales outlets, and it's across sites in Yorkshire, Sunderland, Teesside, Durham and Malton. But the key to this story, the significance is that it will mean that Virtue will represent BMW and Mini for the first time, and closing a gap in the portfolio. And I know that this has been a long-standing strategic objective for Robert Forrester there and the group.
It has, yeah, and obviously there was a lot of rumours around the acquisition sort of at the early stages of the lockdowns, and but obviously whatever has happened, it may have just taken slightly longer than I have anticipated. But a fantastic move by Robert there, and I mean, trying to get a hold of Robert at the minute is here, there and everywhere. He's doing interviews on TV, he's on late TV, he's on webinars, and in between all that, he's doing a 12-site acquisition as well. So again, for the Virtue Group, I mean, it's a great move for those guys in terms of that further brand entrance into some of that more premium product as well, and shows their ambition for growth and really sets the stall out for their ambitions for 2021 and beyond, and I expect more. I think the from what I've seen across the social channels, the group is absolutely over the moon about this, and a lot of activity taking place across those sites. So I imagine Robert is absolutely massively pleased at the minute with everything that's going on.
Yeah, and there's an interesting sign-off in that story, because it points out that Virtue now represents 32 franchises in the UK. So that's more than any other UK automotive retailer. So, he was keen to fill that particular gap in the portfolio.
And he did cite, didn't he? He has been citing that they're in a position for acquisition. He talked about it numerous times that they are in a position to acquire, but it's about the right brand, the right acquisition at the right price, and obviously he's now done that. So it would be great to get Robert back on the show at some point when he's got a bit of free time, I suspect, to do it and update us on what he's up to and what his ambitions are for the years ahead.
So you're listening to All the Chatter That Matters on the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group, the only weekly podcast serving the car retailing sector, and available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favourite podcasts.
So remaining with dealers, but heading back over to Car Dealer magazine, and seems to be every week or every other week we're talking about it now. But the Car Dealer Group, Lookers, the shares unfortunately are going to remain suspended as the interim CFO quits, and yet more results are going to be delayed. And it's a shame really, because they announced the profitability through post-lockdown of the first lockdown and everything else, but there's still stuff going on in there within the business that is causing a few questions, as the chief financial officer, Jim Perry, has now quit.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's only 1 or 2 weeks ago that we were reporting on their 2019 financial results, where profits were down 45 million. But we were expecting these interims to be published now, so that the delay is, it's a major setback for the group.
It is, and I just hope that something does happen and it happens soon, and get the shares back on and get back to some kind of normality with trading. But the longer it goes on, the longer the questions are going to be asked. But yeah, I mean, Car Dealer Mag do highlight some of the what's happened, and they're talking around obviously the history behind all of this. So worth heading over to Car Dealer Mag, and there's updates there from the 11th of March of this year with some of the activity of what's been happening.
Yeah, so our next story is from Automotive News Europe, and it's top 50 dealer groups in Europe revealed. So my thanks here to Steve Young at ICDP, who helped us out with some of the coverage of this story. And every year, ICDP work with Automotive News Europe to produce a top 50 dealer groups. And we don't have the top 50, but we do have a top 10 that we can look at. But there's some interesting analysis here, because the expectation was that there would be widespread closures across Europe as a result of COVID-19 this year, but that hasn't actually happened, and it's something that Steve points out. There's been acquisitions rather than closures, so that with the pandemic accelerating the whole consolidation process.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think everybody expected that there was going to be major financial challenges for the dealers, not just in the UK, but as you say, across Europe and other markets. And it hasn't happened, because there is strength there. There has been support coming out of government for the sector in business support way, and as you say there, it's been by acquisition and consolidation rather than just pure closure. So it's very positive, and we hope that it does continue. I mean, there has been, like I say, closures, but there've been natural closures that would have probably happened with or without COVID anyway. So, but we have got a top 10 for you here, Curtis.
We do. So let me take you through it. So number 10 is Molebil, number 9 Virtue Motors, number 8 Deletterin Auto, number 7 AMAG, number 6 Inchcape Europe. We're now into the top 5. So at number 5 is Arnold Clark, number 4 Pendragon, number 3 Lookers, number 2 Penske Automotive Europe, and number 1 Emil Frey. And Emil Frey have actually held that position for a couple of years now. They're a Swiss group who operates across Europe, and they have 820 franchise points, which is just mind-boggling.
I was just going to say, you can see why. I mean, they're talking about 2019 revenue in euro billions at 15, and the closest to that is Penske with 8 billion. So they are a little bit ahead of the other 9 operators. But again, it's great to see the Virtue, the Lookers, the Pendragon, and the Arnold Clark and Inchcape all in that top 10 operators across the European market there. So fantastic work there.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a strong showing from UK groups, and just to give a little bit of context there, Penske Automotive, who are in second place, they operate 188 franchise points compared with 820 from Emil Frey. And Penske do operate, let's not forget, they don't just operate in the UK, but they've got a presence in Germany, Spain and Italy. And we mentioned Inchcape Europe there as well, obviously operating across Europe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure the Penske one obviously includes the US arm as well.
No. If it did, they would be well and truly in the top spot. Yeah,
exactly.
They would be dwarfing Emil Frey.
Yeah. So I mean, again, just sort of puts a perspective on the broader market and obviously some of these European, international, and UK operators as to what's happening. So again, great there, isn't it?
Yeah, some good research there. Worth heading over to Automotive News Europe if you have a login, because they do dig deeply. And some interesting trends there about France. There's been a lot of activity in France, and that seems to be a major focus for certainly these 10 groups and much of the top 50 at the moment.
Yeah, and I think at the minute, there's obviously, a lot going on and a lot to be decided depending on what happens over the next fortnight with the transition period of Brexit that we mentioned right at the start of the show there, and whether that shows further expansion, further investment into some of the European markets will be decided soon, won't it? So one to keep a very close eye on.
Yes, so we don't actually have an and finally this week, but we do have a last story. So we'll head over to AM for it. And you can help us out with this one, Phil, because the headline is Cox Automotive and Rivas to support EV brand Fiskars UK expansion. So what's happening?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, this is very much connected with that vehicle services sector and the fleet market within the UK. Obviously, we recently acquired the CWL business down at Bruntingthorpe there, but actually, I think Fisker, and we said this when we were chatting before the show, didn't we? That it's that brand that you know of,
yeah,
but actually you're not quite sure what they do and where they came from. And it is a US brand, and it's been going since 2008, and very much in that hyper electric vehicle sector. So I think what is interesting with this is one, obviously that Fisker have got ambitions and strategic plans for growth, very much within that EV sector, and that they're coming over to the UK and have growth expansions for the UK.
Yeah, and the piece in AM does draw parallels with Polestar in that the cars, when they do arrive, will be sold directly to consumers via online channels, and we're expecting the first fully electric SUV in the UK by 2023, with a London showcase experience centre opening in 2022. So not that far off now.
No, it's not. And like you say, you talk about the Polestar, and we've mentioned it obviously on the podcast previously, that they're using their dealer network for the after-sales side of their business, because they are a purely online operator in terms of that direct to consumer, whereas Fisker are coming into the UK. They're pure online, but they obviously haven't got a dealer network here in the UK, so therefore they need that after sales and logistics support, which is where Cox Automotive and Rivas Fleet Services then step in to support that after sales and that logistics support for Fisker when they come into the UK market.
Yeah, no, that really is an interesting way to come to market. I can't think of anyone else who's done that. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this happens. And of course, there are other brands heading our way, which I'm sure we'll be talking about over the course of next year.
It's a nice looking vehicle. The images, a nice little sort of SUV crossover type EV.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure about the orange and black, but no, it's
launch colours.
Yes, yeah. Everything is orange and black at the moment.
Yes, it's the popular launch colour. We've gone away from white and the other ones now. So, I mean, again, Curtis, it's a lot to try and cram in, and I mean, bearing in mind we're 2 weeks away from Christmas. This is our penultimate podcast, and really, more headlines than we had time for again. So there's no let up of activity, no slowdown towards the year end there. So again, very active market with acquisitions, disposals, expansions, growth, profitability. A lot going on in the market, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 2 more podcasts before Christmas, but unfortunately that's all for this week. So you've been listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Do join Philip and I again next weekend for all the chatter that matters.